Hello YouTube. I had a little clickbait title that I thought would be fun to talk about. This is Zach Ferris out of Oklahoma. He has a 350Z. He's been drifting with Lone Star Drift for a long time. Aaron edited in the video of him catching on fire and me putting out the fire and going boop or whatever. Boop, boop. So you know that he's been driving with us for a long time. What I wanted to talk about is most of us only modify our cars and they get crazier and crazier and crazier. You're one of the few people I've known to actually take the same car. I know a lot of people that have crazy cars and they just go get a stock car or whatever, they simplify their lives, but they never demodify their cars. You had a dog box and a supercharger on this LS car and you took them off. Tell me about your thought process of demodifying a car, why you would do it, if it worked out, things like that. Go, get in there, Si.
All right, so initially when I was building the car, I put a supercharger on it, a dog box, made a bunch of power, and I was initially trying to set myself up to do something Pro-Am, FD, maybe in the future. When chasing that, I kind of decided it was becoming expensive. My car was braking a lot more, and my car was built so much different than my friends, and it's just easier to drive with less power. I save money. You get more dollar per lap. So I miss having the power on tap, but you can really drive the car to its limits.
When you say that you were trying to make it cheaper and stuff, how does it physically or actually make it cheaper to take a supercharger off a car? Did it take your tire consumption from 4 laps up to 20 or 4 laps up to 6? What's the actual difference in the exact
I would say
quantitative thing?
I would say I had a 30 to 40% increase in tire life, going through a lot less fuel. My intercooler setup, or my radiator setup, is for a 350Z, not a supercharged LS, so going back to something, this can efficiently cool it a lot better, and just not throwing a lot more of the parts that you need to maintain that level of power. So
how many laps were you getting out of the cooling system with the supercharger versus non-supercharged?
Sometimes maybe 1 lap, depending on
lap?
If it was hot enough. In summer, 100+ degree weather, 1-2 laps I'd have to cool down, and I'd push the car past the point of being comfortable just to stay in comp. And now I can go all day without a cooling issue. Sometimes I don't even have to put my fans on until a few laps. So I'd say I could go, this car doesn't overheat anymore.
Okay, but it used to overheat immediately after
all the time, every event.
Okay. So that was one thing. And for consumables such as axles, transmissions, things like that, what was it breaking specifically?
I've gone through a lot of axles. I messed up some transmissions. I've broken motor part, different internal parts of the different motors I've had over the years. And since putting the T56 back into it and taking the supercharger off, it's just been a few axles here and there. Everything else has just been hits.
Are you breaking the CV joints themselves, or are you breaking the axle bars?
With the supercharger, I was breaking the axles, shearing them on the shaft. Also the splines. You would take, if it didn't break there, when I would replace it, I would see cracking on the splines of the axles, and I was running 1,000 horsepower, whatever that company is.
Drive shaft shop axles. Okay.
So, and now I can run just stock 350Z ones with the LS, and those actually seem to be just as strong, if not better, to be honest.
Is there anything else to note on the car, like moving it backwards? Is it how many different, maintenance between events? How much maintenance is in between events now versus supercharged versus non-supercharged?
Well, I had a lot more money into it, so I was changing my oil after every event, and I was blowing belts with the supercharger. That cost me an event. One of my first events with you, Gulf Greyhound Park, I battled all the way up to the end, and then I broke my supercharger belt, and I didn't have time to put another one on. So less things to go wrong in general. So
were you running fancy fuel? Or was it still pump gas before?
Pump E85. I'm still on it just because it's set up for it, and it was just a quick tune. But there's no reason for me to run E85. But it's been forgiving. I've had fuel rails lift. I've caught on fire a few times. I mean, like I said, more stuff to go wrong, and if you can just mitigate that by having a simpler setup, I think that's the way to go, especially for events and for stuff that we're doing.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you could do to go backwards and create more fun, or is this a happy point? Because I kind of talk a lot about like people should drive stock Z's or stock whatever, but man, when you get a well set up V8 in your car with a T56 that's in really good shape and the V8's in good shape and all the parts are in good shape, man, sometimes you don't have to touch that car for years and it just drives and drives and drives and drives.
Exactly.
So they're actually really reliable, like a stock Z. It can just take a lot of time or money to set the car up for that. Go ahead.
Now, I mean, more than not, I drop my car off at home on the trailer still. I just park it in the garage and I don't touch it until next event. And I might do that 3, 4, 5 times.
And that was not a thing when it was supercharged.
No, every event I was doing, every time I'd have something to fix or definitely have to go over something.
Do you have anything to tell people that are new to drifting that are just getting in?
I would say any one of these cars in a stock form is all you need. You don't need a bunch of power. You don't need angle. You don't need a hydro e-brake. This car right here is a bone stock 350Z. It's got all the O2 sensor codes and, you know, it's in limp mode, but it still shreds. And the only difference that car has than this is, well, to make it drive the same.
500 horsepower V8 in
well,
YSFAB.
They drive the same.
Yeah.
That has my old YSFAB off of it and coilovers, and it's great. Welded diff.
Okay.
So
would you ever go back to that?
No, but because I'm spoiled and I like what I like.
Yeah.
But for somebody just getting into it,
it's surprisingly close when you're actually in drift and doing everything. It just is missing 200 horsepower, which is really fun to have, but really expensive to have.
right.
Cool. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have anything to add, or you want to be done?
I'll answer any other questions you have, but
Sai, can you think of anything? How do you stop the escalation of drifting where, for a lot of us, drifting costs exactly how much all the money we have? Because you're like, oh, I have extra money, I can go to that event, I can buy this part, I can do this. You've been around drifting for almost a decade now. How do you stop yourself? Especially because like this car is starting to be at like a finishing point, you know, like I don't see you changing it a lot because you're at a very happy place. How do you stop yourself? I find myself building new cars all the time, buying new parts, you know, doing all this crazy stuff, going on trips around the world, doing Drift Week. It's always an escalation. I haven't seen you escalate drifting much.
I have to see what it's really going to benefit me from. Do I need a more expensive, fancier this or that part? Is it going to, or is the other one fine? You know, so I'll go to failure or until it's not unsafe, but you know, like the wheels and stuff. I've been running these wheels for a long time. They're very cheap and they're very easily replaceable. They're pretty beat up, but they work. So I'm gonna keep that going. This bumper has been through 4 or 5 seasons. You can see where I used to have it supercharged and have that pipe going through. It still functions as a bumper. It looks good from 50 feet.
KBD plug. Keep going.
The motor is a stock LS2 from a CTSV. I just do oil analysis on it, and if everything's good, I don't do anything but change the oil in it. The fuel system, we got a really nice fuel safe system from Radium. There's really nothing to do with that other than.
But my point is like, how do you stop yourself from like going crazy? Like, you don't go do Formula D, you don't drive all around the planet. How do you keep yourself happy? Because you're in a corner of a country, Oklahoma, that doesn't have a lot going on drifting wise. You do have drift events, but you know what I mean? Like, for someone that had a supercharged V8 and was traveling all over the place, like, how do you keep yourself happy? Is it a drift team and you just stick around with your buddies and what they do, you do? I don't know, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, initially I was trying to go for, a FD spot. And along that road, I just realized how much money it was going to take and how much extra work besides driving it was going to take. And I kind of had a bad run of running Pro-Am. In one season, I caught on fire twice. I broke a bunch of stuff, and it was just it was sucking a lot of the fun out of it for me. And I almost I posted the car for sale, and I was just done. And then I decided to take money out of the car, make it reliable, and enjoy doing stuff with my friends, because you can get burnt out financially, and just it can become not fun anymore when you're just spending money in your car and just always working on it. So personally for me, that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys for watching and everything. I like interesting topics, and thank you for indulging me in chatting about a topic. Let's go drive. And don't forget, we have our last Gulf Greyhound Park event ever, March 20th and 21st. See you there.